Hi, Salwa.
Hi.
Um, and hello, everybody who's joining us for this conversation that we're going to be having with you. I'm going to introduce myself first, and then our guest today, she will introduce herself. Myself, I'm Mireille MAKAMBO from TASSC International. I'm the Career Development Coordinator, and we're going to record this event today. Actually, I'm going to let Salwa introduce herself and let you know what we're going to be talking about today.
Hi, everyone who's listening to this. My name is Salwa Mukoda. I work as in-house counsel for a company called AGS Tax in Newton here in Massachusetts, USA. And I'm happy to be here.
Okay. We are going to be sharing, Salwa is going to be sharing about her experience, her professional experience from her home country. And then she's also going to share how she came here to the US and how she managed to be successful in her professional field. She knows everything better than I do, so I'm gonna be asking questions, but the floor is all yours.
Thank you. So, like as earlier mentioned, my name is Salwa. I moved to the US in 2017 around August. So I moved here as an asylum seeker, and I got here. So I arrived in August, and I was, to give you my background a little bit, I was a lawyer in Uganda. So I had a law degree, and I had also graduated from LDC, and I was also enrolled. So I was a practicing lawyer in Uganda. I was working with a law firm before I moved to the US. So so I moved here as an asylum seeker, and I when I got here, I had to figure out first things first. How was I going to pursue a career in the US, because I was already um, educated and practicing law in Uganda. So that was my biggest question when I moved to the US. And it's one of the most important things you have to ask yourself when you get to a different country. What am I going to do about my career? Because there are so many different dynamics when it comes to the education and experience that is required for you to work in certain places. So anyway, when I got here in 2017, I settled in Boston, Massachusetts. So I had family here, so I settled in with my family, and I just, because I'm big on my career, that I started doing my research right away to know what I needed to do to push it forward in this country. And it's interesting because I had my laptop, and I just sat down on my laptop because Wi-Fi here is everywhere. I went on the internet and I started reading about what is required for someone to practice law in the US. What do I need? How can I get a job as a lawyer in the US? And I read a lot on the internet. It gave me, utilize the internet. There is a lot of information that you can get, good information that you can get from the internet. So from the internet, I learned that I needed to get a license to practice in this country. So I started finding out, my next step was to know, what do I need to get my license? And I learned the process. I had to go back to school to get a master's degree, or I had to go back to school to do another law degree in the US. And I had to weigh my options. So I read about it, and I learned that I had to go back to school to either do a master's degree or do a JD, which is a law degree in the US. And after that, I would qualify to get my license. So when I read that, I looked at the options, both of them. I said, which one is the easier one? In terms of money, And in terms of time, it's very important because I was already educated. I was already old. I was 25 around that time. So maybe 24, maybe 25. I'm not good with math, but I was already old. I was done with my education. I had worked. I had to choose the easy way out. So a master's degree, usually they are 1 year. So that's not even a year, 9 months. I said, this is 9 months. It's going to cost me this amount of money. I found that it costs between 50,000 and 100,000 if you're to get a master's in law in a good university in the US. And then the JD is I could do it for 2 years because I already had a law degree. So there's a program where you can do your law degree in 2 years if you have a law degree from a different country. So I found out I had that option, but that was going to be more expensive. It was going to be more difficult because you're doing a lot of stuff in 2 years. It was also going to be like me going back to law school, which I had finished.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, now what I will do is the master's degree. So I said, I'll do the master's degree and then I'll qualify to get my license. So when I read about that and I knew what I had to do, that's very important for you to know, depending on what field you're in and what you want to do. If you want to continue with that field, you have to read what do I have to do to continue working and pursue a career in that field. If you want to change fields, you have to do research on whatever field you want to pursue in the US. And it's also very important to know some things are very good back where we came from, but not in the US. So law is a different profession because it's a big profession, so you can pursue a law degree and succeed anywhere you go. I think lawyers are one of those professions where you can make it anywhere you go, but some professions and some courses that some things we studied back in our home countries, when you come to the US, are not helpful. So if you have a law, if you have a degree in something in a field, a course that is not very marketable in this country, then you have to probably think about changing your career path. For me, when it came to, I knew that I didn't have to change my career path, but for me, something that I should have probably done more research on was the specialization, because I had a specialization of this banking and financial law. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I had experience in, and that's something that I love. But as I settled in the US, I learned that probably I should have chosen a different specialization for the US. Like health law, health is a big sector in this country. It's not very big in Uganda, where I'm from. I didn't actually mention it, but I'm from Uganda. So health is a big thing in this country. So I thought about it and I said, maybe I should have done health law. Also intellectual property, it's big because of all the big tech companies in this country. So intellectual property is a big sector. So probably that too, and also tax. Tax is also big. So I said, maybe I should have specialized in one of those three. But when you're new to a place and you're trying to figure out things, there are some things that you can miss. But anyway, I found out that I had to do my master's degree, and I started, the next step that I took was, before I even, at that point, I had actually submitted my application for asylum. It was about a month after I got here that I submitted my application for asylum. And now as I was waiting for my work permit, I said, how do I apply for a master's degree in the US? I don't have permanent residence. I don't have citizenship. I'm here on asylum and that it's pending. It hasn't been granted. So I started doing research on that too. What do I need? I called universities. It's very important and very helpful because you call them and you tell them your situation and they can guide you on how you can apply. So I called the university I was looking into was Boston University because I was in Boston. So I called, I said, this is my situation, but I want to apply for this program. And they told me, okay, if you're in the US, you're on asylum, it hasn't been granted, it's pending, you have to apply as an international student. The only difference is you will
That
not
was
need.
the information you got from the school.
Yes.
Okay.
So they told me you have to apply as an international student, but you will not need a visa. When we reach a point where we have to admit you and you have to start classes, you have to show us that you're legally authorized to stay in the US. And for me, that legal authorization was the form they give asylum seekers for, to show that you have submitted an application and you can stay in the US.
A receipt that you submitted your
exactly,
application.
the receipt.
Okay.
So they say, so that's the form they say I'll need to show that I'm legally authorized to stay in this country. Okay. So when I knew that, I said, okay, so my next step is to apply, but as an international student, and it has its benefits and also, detriments. The benefits are you get scholarships for international students because they admit international students different from residents. So as an international student, you have higher chances of getting scholarships because they know you're from a poor country. It's going to be so expensive for you. So I had that benefit. And also the other benefit is you have higher chances of being admitted as an international student for master's programs in the US. They give priority to international students from different parts of the world. So I used that opportunity and I said, okay, the detriment is the tuition is higher. As an international student, the tuition is higher, obviously. So anyway, I applied. The application fee is the only cost that I had to incur at that point, which was $100. So I applied for my master's. It took me like a week to submit my application. I applied around November 2017. Actually, yeah, between November and December 2017. That is 2 months after I had arrived. I didn't even have a work permit yet. I wasn't working. So when I submitted my application, it took about a month or two. In January of 2018, I got my admission from Boston University, and it came with a scholarship of $15,000.
It seems like within 2-3 months you had like a lockdown, something that people take years to get that, but you did it like in 2-3 month period. So
exactly,
yeah, something to applaud.
So I had this admission before I even had a work permit, before I didn't know anything about the country. I hadn't even settled in, but I just knew I had kept the ball rolling. So when I got that admission and it came with that scholarship of 15,000, I said, okay, that's like more than a quarter, maybe like three, maybe it was like 2/4 of the scholarship, because the scholarship was the 15,000, but I had to pay an extra 35,000. The tuition was 50,000. So that's good. It's not half, but it's good. It's a good start. And I tried to actually ask for more. You can actually ask for more money in funding. So I wrote the university and I told them that I have this scholarship, but I have these issues, A, B, C, D. I need more money for my tuition. If you can only give me half, I can.
Just a question here. When you wrote that letter to ask like for additional money, what kind of information did you include in that letter?
So it was an email. I wrote back to the admissions committee, and I just told them my situation. So I told them I just moved to the US. I don't have much funding from back home. I don't have any other scholarships. I can only afford, because you have to show them that you can actually afford to pay some money. You can ask for a full scholarship. Then it becomes tricky because they know it's hard to give you that. So I said, at least give me 50% of the tuition. And it's interesting, but the way they do these admissions, it's like a competition. And that's what people do. It's like these universities compete for the best students. So they asked me if I had any other offers. And at that point, unfortunately, I didn't. But I later learned that if I had any other offer, they would have matched it. So if you have an opportunity, apply to multiple schools, because you can actually, you have options.
Like offers from other schools or offer
Yes,
of okay, okay.
from other schools. So they told me,
Mhm.
do you have any other admissions and scholarship offers? And I say no. And I later learned that if I had an offer that was better, they would have
Mhm.
matched it in order to make sure
To
that
keep
I
you.
go to their university
Okay,
instead.
so basically universities are competing to keep
The
best
best,
students.
yes.
Okay, okay.
Because
That's
a
something
colleague
that
of yeah,
mhm.
because a colleague of mine in the program told me he had a different offer from a different university, and when he told them about it, they gave him more money.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's good to know.
yeah, that
Yeah.
happens. So if you apply to a university and they give you 15,000, you apply to another and they give you 20,000. If you want to go to the one that gave you 15,000, you go to them and tell them, this person gave me 20,000 in scholarship. I really want to come to your university, but you gave me less. Can
Mhm.
you please make it more? And they will most likely do.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So anyway, I couldn't get more money. So I had to figure out the balance on my own. So the next step was for me to go on the internet again and start looking for how can I fund my studies in the US. I put in all types of searches. You have to search, when you use the internet, you have to be specific. A lot of
Mhm.
people don't know this, but I was very specific. I first put in scholarships for asylum seekers, scholarships for people who are refugees in the US. Those are the searches that I first put in. And when you put that in, you will see all these different, options.
Mhm.
And it all depends on what course you want to study, where you want to study, what state, and things like that.
Mhm.
So, but for my particular situation, I didn't find anything beneficial for my program. So that didn't work. I started looking into loans, and I started with the banks. I say private because I knew I'm not a permanent resident, I'm not a citizen, so the only loans I can get are private loans.
Mhm.
And I started looking into private loans for international students in the US from banks. And I learned a lot of banks do actually give these loans, but they give it to you like as an international student, they can actually give it to you. For me, what they asked for was a guarantor because I was new to the US. So
Mhm.
they said, do you have a permanent resident or a citizen who
Mhm.
can be a guarantor for your loan? And I didn't have any. So
Yeah.
I couldn't. But I did apply to Citizens Bank. They have a student loan option. And if you have a guarantor, you can get maybe 10, 15,000, depending on how good their credit is. At that point, I didn't have credit. That's why they asked for a guarantor because I didn't have
Mhm.
anything to show,
Yeah.
But also when you apply for those loans, they'll ask you your situation in the US. So that receipt that you get when you apply for asylum is what you use for all those. They ask for the receipt, the passport, and the admission letters,
Okay.
scholarships letters, if you have any. They'll
Mhm.
ask for all of that at that point to make sure that you're not here, you have legal authorization to be here. And so they asked me for a grant. I didn't have one. Um, I had to look for the loan elsewhere, and then that's when I looked into a private loaning company called Empower Finance.
Mhm.
Um, it's M then the word power finance. So I just found it on the internet, and I looked into them. They do give international students loans up to 50,000
Okay.
for tuition. So I applied, and I saw all the documents they needed. They need a number of documents. And I put together all these documents.
And
They asked me
for that one, you didn't need to have a guarantor to sign, like
no,
no, okay.
no. They are just for international students. All you need to show is your admission, scholarship, and if you're asking for less than you need for your studies, they'll ask you where you're gonna get that balance. So they'll ask for like a bank statement to show that you can get the balance, and they'll ask for your work history, where you've worked and all that, and where you want to work after. They'll ask for a financial statement to show your finances and how much you make. And at that point, I believe I had stabilized. That was around May 2018. And I had my work permit.
That May.
Yeah.
Okay.
At this point, it was May 2018. I had a work permit and I was working. So that helped me a lot. I had a social security number too. So when I applied and I told them I needed, it's a lot easier when you have you're working, you have a work permit and a social. When I applied, they were so easy on me. I had a job and they just asked me.
If you don't mind me asking, was it a small job, like in a coffee shop, restaurant, or it was a different kind of job that could actually help you to have like a consistent amount to pay some of your schooling?
So it was a small job. It was like $13 an hour job.
Okay.
So, but they don't care about that. They just want to know if you have some work experience, and if you're working in this country, they know after you graduate, you're probably going to also be working, and you'll be making more money. Also, that company, when they give you the loan, you have to make some payments every month. I think it's $25 when you're in school. So they have to make sure that you can afford to pay that $25.
I'm asking all these questions because I know, I mean, just listening to what you are providing as information, it can be intimidating to a survivor, somebody who's new in the country, and then like seeing like those big amounts, like to afford tuition and everything. It can be very intimidating, and people can kind of back off, not to kind of make that kind of commitment, even to just get the guts to step up and then take like that that step ahead, just to reach the professional goals. So that's something that I really wanted to emphasize, that like to really highlight that sometimes it just requires courage. Yeah.
It's a risk that you take based on the fact that once you graduate, and that's why it's very important to do a course that you can trust, because you have to look into, when I graduate, how much will I be making? Will I afford to pay off this loan? And that was my biggest question.
Or even just to do research of the type of jobs that you're gonna be hired, that you're not gonna be staying on the job market for years before you find something. So all that is really important to know. Yeah,
you have to do something that you know you're not going to just waste this money. Some people do get loans and they are not able to pay them back because they can't do anything with the degree that they got the loan for. So I know some courses are really big in this country: IT, nursing, and of course law. You can easily navigate engineering, software, things like that. You can easily navigate the system. It's very hard for you to stay on the market for long, which is not the case with certain courses, you know. So anyway, so that was a risk I took. I said, okay. And the good thing about student loans is it's not secured. So they give it to you also hoping that you get a job after you graduate. And also you don't give in anything to show that you're going to lose when you don't pay it back. So it's not something that's going to keep you awake like a mortgage or a car loan, because then they can come for your car or your house. So that motivates you to just and a lot of, and I also learned that it's the norm here because it's hard. The education is very expensive. So it's
Everybody's got some.
literally everyone has some
Yeah.
student loans. I said, okay, I'll just do it too. So when I applied to Empower, I was lucky they gave me the balance of the tuition, all of it.
Okay.
So they gave it to me, and now I just had to worry about my upkeep, my books, and everything else. But I was working, so I could cover that. So that was May, and I was supposed to start my classes in around August 2018. So that was exactly 1 year after I came to the US. That's when I started my classes. And yeah, so I went to school. I paid the $25 every month that I was supposed to pay just for interest, not to build up. I paid that, and I was in school while working. And that's why a lot of people sometimes choose not to go back to school because it's very hectic, but it's a sacrifice that has to be made. I had to study and I had to work because I had to care for my bills and my upkeep and take care of myself.
Yeah.
So I was studying full-time because it's a master's program, full-time during the day. You can choose to do it part-time, especially if you're in the US and you're already here, they allow you to do it part-time. If you're not here, you can't. But if you're already in the US, you can do it part-time. So when you do it part-time, it takes 2 years if the program is 1 year. But when you do it full-time, it's 9 months. So I decided to just do it once and be done with it. So I did it in 9 months, and I had to study during the day, every day. And then I had to work overnight. So my shifts were all overnight and weekends because we had no classes over the weekend. And I could go to class, leave, and then go straight to work. I never used to go home after classes.
So my understanding is like you took like morning classes?
No, they used to start at 11 to around 8 p.m. So from 11 to 8, I would be at the university in my classes or reading or studying. And then at 9 p.m., I had to go for my for my job. And it was 9 p.m. until like 7 a.m. So you basically get like those shifts that match your schedule. If you have morning classes, then you have to probably choose a different schedule from mine. But I had to ask the company I was working for shifts that matched my schedule. And they'll offer you that if you're a student. You tell them I'm in school, they'll find you a shift that matches your school schedule. So if they actually do care about the employee's education.
Yeah. So was it like a smooth ride, or it was really challenging for you to keep up with that type of schedule, like to balance work and school? How was it?
I mean, as you can imagine, it was very challenging because you don't have time to rest.
Exactly.
I used to leave work at 7 a.m. and then I would go home and take like a shower, just freshen up and lie down on my bed for like 1 hour, set an alarm, wake up at 10, and then I have to go to school. And at that point, some people like have cars, but for me at that point, I didn't even have a car, so I had to take the bus. And it was very, very challenging. But for me, what motivated me was one, it was just going to be 9 months.
Exactly.
And two was this is eventually going to pay off. And that's what I just told myself, like it's going to pay off one day, and it's better for me to do this now than later, So because once you wait, most cases you can't do it. You get used to working, you get used to the system, people get married, have kids, and you want your life to move forward. So you don't think about going back to school, but that keeps you at jobs where you don't make much. They keep you at jobs where even if you make much, you're overworking. You have to work 80 hours to get good money, not a job where you work 40 hours
Yeah.
and make good money. So
And
that's what motivated me.
And once you get into that cycle, it becomes difficult to get out of that cycle. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. And also, I forgot to mention this, but when you're applying for master's degrees and scholarships, they do prefer younger people.
Okay.
People who don't have a lot, people who don't have a lot of experience, and people who don't, because they know you're more active. And also, if if you like if you have a lot of experience, they'll admit you obviously, but you won't get funding because they assume when you have a lot of experience, you can afford because you've been working. So they assume you can afford that tuition.
So if I understand what you're saying is the fact that you were also young, that's why it kind of played to your advantage. For some, let's say somebody who has the profile of let's say 10, 15 years of professional experience back home, they have children, they have a family, and they come just in your same situation, seeking for asylum, and they also have like a low degree, or it can be any type of degree. So is it going to be, I mean, both cases, are they going to be treated differently, or do you know anything to say about that?
What I can tell you is they will most likely, they'll be admitted obviously, but they'll most likely not get as much funding. That's one.
Okay.
They'll most likely not get as much funding because they usually prefer to give funding to people who are fresh out of school, just graduated. I know the people who had it also depends on the program. Some programs are for people who have, and that's the thing. When you're looking for education in the US, you have to look into what is for your program and what is not. The Boston University, for example, has an executive master's degree, which is for people who have more than 10 years experience.
Okay.
And then it has a master's degree for people like us. So such a person would have to apply to the executive master's program, which is a different program and which will value their experience. Ours had younger people. I was one of the people in my age group were one of the, were like the majority, most, but we were like the oldest in the program at 25, 26. We were the oldest in the program. So there were very few people who were older than us, and there were very many people who were younger than us, who were fresh out of school, because those are the people who are more active. But if people who have 10 years plus experience, usually when it comes to career path in the US, it's better to go for the executive master's degrees because they are made for those people, not people who have less experience. Also, certificates are the professional certificates are a better option than a master's because those are for people who have lots of experience and want to.
The professional experience that are offered like in different universities, they also provide, like, there are some scholarships actually to get the certifications, or you have to pay for those? Because I know most scholarships will cover actually a undergraduate or a graduate program, but if it's a certification, I'm not quite sure. But do you know something about that?
It might not be a scholarship, but there might be some funding opportunities. Like if it's an executive master's, there might be like an opportunity for you to actually be like an assistant lecturer, and then in return get your tuition lowered. So there is always like an option for some,
like a teacher assistant. Yeah. I saw that.
Yeah, because you have the experience, so you can actually help and be, as you're doing it, you're also teaching, and in return you're not getting paid, but your tuition is lowered. So there is that, but also there is always some financial help. There is always some. It's just that some programs get less than others. So undergraduate gets the most, master's degrees get a good amount, and then those executive programs and certificates get the little funding, but also they are cheaper in a way. So so it's always so many factors that are at play. But sometimes if you have 10 years of experience, honestly, a master's degree doesn't help very much if you're looking for a way of, you know, pursuing a career. In that case, you might think into professional certificates, unless you just wanted to do a master's. Like some people want to do a master's, so then it doesn't matter when you do it. But if you're doing it as a path, you know, sometimes at some point it won't help, because this country actually even values experience more than education. So,
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So you just have to do something to make them trust your experience, which you already have. Yeah, so anything can work in that case. Also, for people who have a lot of professional experience, it's always good to look into doing something that's going to just make you self-employed, rather than working for a company or someone in the US, because they might not value your experience as much. So if you come here with 10 years and you are a CPA in Africa or wherever country you came from, and then you come here, you might find that setting up your own tax plan is easier than you having to go back to school, start studying again and all that. You might find, what do I need to get a license? To get a tax firm, I need to study. And you might find it's like 2-3 months. You study and then you get your license, and then you can set up your own firm. And that's something that people with a lot of experience could look into than the master's programs and other things like that. So anyway, yeah, but for me it was just the master's. It was my only way out. If I had come with a certain number of experience, probably I would have had different options. But I had like 2 years experience, so I didn't have very many options at all.
Okay. Since you mentioned like the case of somebody who has a background, like who's a CPA, and then your recommendation is like for somebody with like CPA 10 plus years of experience to start their but how trustfully, because like, okay, what I'm trying to say, like, is the experience from overseas, from outside of the US, really do people here trust somebody who has experience from outside to even to have even customers to come to give them your paperwork to do taxes? Do you have any idea?
So the thing is, when it comes to being self-employed, is nobody is going to know your background. So when you have a tax firm, for example, or a law firm, if I set up my own law firm right now, nobody will know that I was educated in Uganda and I did a master's degree. They will not know. If they are looking for a law firm and they see it and they come in and they feel comfortable working with me, they'll work with me. They won't even ask questions about, they'll know that I'm from a different country, but they will know, because when they see it, they know you're qualified. That's the most important thing. When somebody sees a tax firm, they know you have a license, you're educated in this field, and they trust you. So people will come. How you keep them depends on how good you are at what you do. So, but people will always come as long as you get that license and you set up a place, an office, whatever, and you put the word out there and you advertise. People will definitely come. It doesn't matter. A lot of accountants that we work with are not even from the US, and most people who are from outside the US serve clients from those places, so they trust you more because they can speak your language, they understand you, and as long as you have the license, they know that you were given the go ahead to do this. Because in this country, it's not like in Africa. In Uganda, you can fake things, but in the US, you can't. So when somebody sees your office, they see a license up there, they just know you can be trusted. So, and that's something I encourage people to do, because sometimes it's the better option than looking for work.
Looking for work, to be employed by someone. Okay.
Yeah.
So any bump on the road from the time you started your program until you finish, was everything done within the 9 months that you planned, or it went longer?
Yeah, I just studied really hard. I used my work, and when you're working and studying, you have to look for jobs where you can actually study at work, and jobs that are not so hard on you. You can't be in school and work for like a warehouse where you're going to be on your feet the whole night. You can't do that. And those are the jobs we do when we have just arrived. And before we get our certifications and our licenses, that's what we do. But you can't choose a warehouse. You can't choose like a place where you're going to be on your feet the whole 10 hours or 12 hours. No, find jobs where you can sit for like an hour and read, where you're not like distracted. For me, I was doing home care. So, and I made it clear, I said, okay, I'm not going to go to nursing homes when I'm in school. So whenever they gave me a shift that required me to go to a nursing home, I said no. I did home like personal homes only, like handling one patient and handling someone who is in their home, where I know I can sit on the couch and open my books. I used to read at the clients.
So it's just that you are present. If the person needs anything, you can stand and go attend to them and then come back, do your thing. Okay.
Yeah, and clients can be very supportive too when you tell them your story. So I shared with them, and they would give me an opportunity to read. When I had exams, I remember one time I had an exam the next day, and I was at the client's place that night. And the client told me, I'm not going to bother you tonight. Just sit down and read. And I read the whole night, and I passed that exam actually. And that's good. And also when you're working at night, you're in home care, most likely the clients are sleeping. So when they are sleeping, you don't have to do anything.
So you had to be very smart to develop some type of strategy that would work for you, actually.
Exactly.
Not just to do something because everybody's doing it.
No. Even at that point, I had gotten a job which was paying me more money for an overnight shift. I did it for 1 week. And I quit because it couldn't match my school schedule. It was a job that required me to be awake the whole night and not do anything else. There were cameras all over the place. I said, okay, no, you're giving me more money, but no, it doesn't match my current schedule. So I quit after 1 week. I told them, no, I can't handle this because I'm in school. And I said, I'll be back after. So you have to be strategic. If you have a job which you know cannot match your school, you probably want to look for something different that could better match your schedule and that will not interrupt your studies, because you can't afford to fail. You're investing already too much money into your studies. You can't afford to fail. So I passed. I passed actually very well, because I knew that this was it for me. I didn't have the luxury that my colleagues had. They weren't on asylum. They had green cards. Some of them had visas. They were from rich families. They didn't have loans. So for me, I didn't have the luxury. So I really worked hard, and I didn't face any hurdles. And also the university. This I didn't mention. If you don't get if you're not able to get a student loan, you can pay your tuition in installments. So if you serve maybe 10 or 15,000, you can give them that, and then you can pay the balance in installments maybe every 2 months and pay them, and they'll allow you
that
to
option.
study.
That's something I didn't know. So you also have the option to do that. Okay.
Yes.
That's good to know.
For me, if I had decided to pay in installments, probably I would have been paying maybe like 3,000 a month.
Okay.
And also, if you get your admission like a year in advance, I got mine like 6-7 months in advance. So if I had a work permit then, for those 6 months, I probably would have saved some good money, but I didn't have a work permit at that point, so I wasn't able to.
Okay. So I know when you are an international student, when school is in session, you cannot work for more than 20 hours. Did you have that restriction given that you had your work permit, or you
No,
had
that
flexibility?
restriction is for people who are on a student visa.
Oh, okay, it's the student visa, that's the key. Okay.
Yeah, it's for the student visa. It's not like for us. So if you have your work permit, you can do anything.
Okay. And how did it work for you after you graduated from school? How long did it take you before you got your job?
So I graduated in May. So when I was in school, I started applying for jobs. You can do that when you're in school. You actually start applying for the jobs because it takes time to recruit, and they can actually give you a job while you're still in school, and then you go there after. They can do it here. So I started applying when I was in school. I applied, and I think I did some interviews. I don't remember how many when I was still in school, but the real interview that I did was in May. That was after I graduated. I graduated on May 19th, 2018. I did an interview like the next week, and for one of the jobs I had applied for, and it was in New Jersey. So I took a train, I went there, I did it, and then I came back, and that's the job that I got. They actually gave me an offer in July, and I started in July. So I started 2 months after my graduation.
2 months after your graduation. Okay. Okay. That's good. Yeah.
So and when you have a work permit, it's easy because they don't have to sponsor you. For people who need sponsorship,
exactly. Yeah.
So that made it a lot easier. So I started in July, and yeah, it was easy for me.
Yeah.
And like I said, depending on what course you do, if you do nursing, obviously that by the time you graduate, you have a job. Those courses are very marketable. IT, software engineering, very marketable in this country. So you have to be very careful with the courses that you choose, because some are harder than others. Mine is also difficult, but it's not very bad.
Okay. I have one question actually that's coming in mind now. To kind of rewind a little bit, like from the beginning, before you started school. Because you mentioned that you spent a lot of time doing research, even just to find a program for school, to find how you were going to pay for your tuitions and everything, and how you managed to do all that. So I'm curious to know how you organize yourself in terms of what was a typical day for you, because I'm assuming you didn't have a work permit, and you were waiting for your work permit, and you couldn't work, and you weren't going to school, and you spent time just doing research to find those kind of information. So what was like a typical day for you?
Actually, yeah, at that point, I had nothing much to do. So I just spent most of my time on my laptop. I had come here with my laptop. So I just spent a lot of time on my laptop reading about so many things and trying to understand the system. I also read about what I can do if I can get the master's degree. What will I do? So I had like my plan A, plan B, plan C all laid out. So I knew, the master's degree is option one, but if I don't have the money to do that, I can do a certificate and become a paralegal, and that's cheaper. It's like $3,000. like 2 months. And when you become a paralegal, you get a job in that field and you can later go back to school. At least you'll be working in your field, which is law, because I was looking for other options that will allow me to stay in my field, which is law. So I had that. I read about. So I also started looking for like paralegal jobs. I started planning ahead. Like if I get my work permit, you can actually get a paralegal job even if you don't have anything. Even if you don't go back to school here, it's just a paralegal job. You're like not really a lawyer. You're just helping lawyers. So you can get it. And I did apply for those when I got my work permit too. I did apply for those as well, but they don't really give people like us the positions because we are overqualified for the position. So that was challenging, but you can get it, especially if you have like a connection or somebody. That is a legal job you can get even if you don't go back to school. So I was looking into all these options, and that was like my plan B, you know, because you will be working in a law firm with lawyers. And some law firms, when you work with them as a paralegal for 2 or 3 years, they can sponsor you to go back and do your master's degree or your law degree if you're not already a lawyer. So that was my typical day. I was just like trying to see how I can navigate the system, all different ways.
So from like hearing what you're saying, I'm getting here that you really had like your goals lined up and you went for them. It was like, okay, this is what I'm going for. I have plan A, plan B, and plan C, and I'm just gonna work around here. But things were very specific from the get going.
Yes, and that's very important because when I had just moved to the US, the people that I first met the first 2-3 days, they told me, you are a lawyer in Uganda, you're not gonna make it in this country. You have to do nursing. You have to go back to school and do nursing. You're not gonna.
There is always that voice somewhere saying
law is not a big deal in this country. Don't bother. But for me, I had my mind set on that. I was like, I'm a lawyer. I was a lawyer in Uganda. I'll be a lawyer in the US. And what do I have to do to do that? And when I graduated, all these people were in shock because they didn't even know I was in school. They didn't know. They thought, oh, maybe she's from a rich family, or maybe she has. They had no idea how I did it because they didn't think it can be done. They didn't. So basically, you have to know what you want. That's one thing. You have to be realistic and say, okay, this is what I want, and know that this will work. Don't be crazy and do and want things that are not going to be helpful. But for me, I actually read how much lawyers make here, law firms here. I read everything and I said, okay, no, there is no way I'm going to change. You know, I'm on the right path. And so I said, this is what I have to do. This is what I'm going to do. And it's good that my plan A worked out because it was the best option. So it's good to know these, and it's good to have options and to know what you have to do and speak to the right people and to not listen to those live voices that are telling you A, B, C, D, because all these people that were telling me, oh, you know, it's not going to work right now, they can't say it anymore. And they keep sending people to me like to help them too, because they know, they realize that it can actually work.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I'm very inspired by your story, and I really hope that the survivors who are going to watch this recording will also get ideas on how they can also organize themselves and set goals, especially professional goals. If they are planning to stay, they are seeking asylum here to stay, and how they're going to make it. So I really hope that people really get inspired, because myself, to tell you the truth, I'm very inspired. And I find that you've been very, very brave, and you're a good example for a lot of survivors, survivors that I work with, because that's like a story that I hear almost on a daily basis. So you have a very good example of what people can do and the options and mostly resources that are available here in the US for people in the same situation. Actually, something also is coming in my mind. I think you mentioned it the first time that we had a conversation about like people with legal background from outside of the US being actually able to practice without even going back to school. Like you mentioned, like in different
Yeah.
states. Do you have something to say to that?
Yes. So for the state of California, if you were practicing in your home country for at least 2 years before moving to the US, 2 years or more, when you come to the US for the state of California to get a license there, you don't need to go back to school. So what you do is you get your license from Uganda, you get a letter from your governing body there that says you are good practicing advocate and you don't have any complaints against you. And when you get that, it's called a certificate of compliance. And you apply, you attach your academic documents. Most of them, they ask that the university or they send it directly to them, not through you.
Okay.
Once they get those papers and your application, they'll allow you to do their bar exam.
Okay.
And you just have to study for it. So there is a bar prep. There are so many, but for me, I use Barbary. So you just go there, you register. The cost was $3,000. So you pay that $3,000, and you just start learning about the law. You do tests. It's a course. It's a preparation course. It's only 2 months, but if you need more time, especially the California bar, it's difficult. It's one of the hardest. That's why it's so easy to qualify, because qualifying doesn't mean you're going to pass it. But if you know it's hard like that one, for me, I used 2 months to prepare for hours. I did New York because that's what most people do. But California is hard. So you could use 6 months and do the course for 6 months. It's the same amount of money. It's just gives you more time to master the course, the laws. And once you master them, you sit for the exam and you do it. And if you fail, you do it again. There is no limit to how many times you can do that exam. You fail it, you do it again. And when you pass it, you get your license. So that's one of the states. I'm not sure about others, but I can do research and get you a list of the states where you don't need to go back to school. And also, once you get a license in one state, if you do the uniform bar exam, so it's uniform, it's for all the states. When you do that uniform bar exam, which I did, when you get a license for one state and you practice, you have your license for 5 years. So like I'm gonna get my license in New York in November. 5 years from November, I can transfer it to any other state.
So you relocate and you can just practice without.
Yeah, I can relocate to DC and transfer my license to DC. Not even transfer, but I can get a license in another state. So you're not really transferring it, but you qualify to get a license in a different state. So even if you don't want to stay in California, you get their license, you get it for 5 years, you practice there or whatever, and then you want to go back to wherever you want to stay, you just move to your state and you get a license in that state if it's after 5 years.
Okay. That's something really good to know. And there might be a possibility that in a different professional field, something similar also exists. So it's just an information for survivor to keep in mind that there are really options available.
Yes, I know CPA too. If you have your CPA in any country, when you move to the US, you don't have to do those classes again. There might be some particular ones that you do, maybe 2 or 3, but you're not gonna do the whole course and all the classes to get your CPA license. SCCA too, very many of those programs, sometimes you just need to add a few things and then you get your license here. CPA, I know for a fact, you don't have to go back and do everything.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. So, well, thank you so much. I know it's a work day. Thank you for taking the time to share your story, your experience with us. We do appreciate that, and I'm wishing you the very, very best successful professional life. I don't know if you have any final comment or advice to give to those who are starting the journey, or they've been here for a year, 2, 3, 5 maybe, but they are still not finding the way. Any advice?
So my final word would be moving here can challenge us in so many ways, especially when it comes to pursuing our career path. But one thing you have to understand is there are options of how you can succeed. If I get my license and I'm unable to get a job, I can set up my own law firm. It's that simple. So all I need, and this country is very flexible and advanced. They don't ask for too much. All you need is you have a license, register your law firm, and then you're good to go. You have a desktop, fine, and that's it. And you can advertise. In Uganda, you can't even advertise your business, your law firm, but here you can advertise your law firm. You see them on TV all the time. So I have that option. If you're worried about, oh, I'm gonna do this course, I'm not gonna be able to get a job, you can start your own thing. And in this country, as long as you're good, you will make it. So you just have to work on being good at what you do. Exactly. You will make it. There is no nepotism here. There is no favoritism like in some of our countries. There is no politics in anything. If you want to register your business, you can do it. No one is gonna stop you. It doesn't matter if as long as you have your work permit, you're not an illegal person. There is nothing that you can't do in this country. So you just have to have the passion and understand that this is what I'm going to do. So for me, I have my plan laid out. If I don't get the job that I want, I'll start my own law firm. And I'm determined and to do it, and I'll do it if I have to. So you just have to know that and understand that. But it's very important for everyone to actually pursue their careers and to do what they love, and not to be discouraged by the situation that we have all been through or that we have gone through.